Hi everybody, here we go with the second to last bit of reading from our book. We should finish it off tomorrow. It's quite a short one today. It's a glorious day today, very, very warm. I've got the shorts out. Just make sure that you keep drinking plenty of water. As it gets hotter, it's still really, really important. Okay, here we go. Friday night, chapter 1. So Barry, said the head, you've had your 5 days with 5 parents, but now it's decision time. Which of the 5 sets of parents would you like to choose? When you say choose, you mean go and live with forever, said Barry. Yes, said the head. Until you grow up, of course, and then you'll have to come and see us to apply for children. It won't be me in this chair by then, I shouldn't think, ha-ha. The head looked to the secretary entity to laugh at his joke, but they just looked pained. Are you all right, Secretary 1? I'm fine, thank you, Head, said Secretary 1. You sound a little throaty. I'm also fine, thank you, Head, said Secretary 2. So do you, actually. Barry looked out of the window. It was late on Friday night. They had kept the agency open for him specially, and the lights of the city were glittering outside. I don't know, said Barry. He looked down at his list, which was lying on his lap. It was so crumpled now that even he couldn't really read it, although he was the one who had written it. Said the head. I'm afraid you really have to make your mind up now. He looked over at the last 24-hour glass, the red one. It had about 100 grains of sand left. One went through, then another. It's nearly midnight, and past midnight you'll be 10, and then... He trailed off as usual. Suddenly, Barry felt very angry with him. What? He said loudly and sharply. The head raised an eyebrow. Not a big one, just a standard up it goes. Pardon? Barry took a deep breath. Then, what? Every time I come back here, there's always a moment where you and them, he did a thumb gesture towards the secretary entity, go quiet about what happens to the children who get to 10 without finding parents. But now, I want to know. I have to. The head sighed. He got up and went to the window, the one with the amazing view of the city, and looked out, not saying anything. He had his back to Barry. He opened the window. Then he turned round. His face looked white with dread. Okay, Barry. This is what happens to children who don't find parents by the age of 10. Basically, as he said this, a powerful gust of wind came into the room and blew Barry's list up into the air. Oh my God, said Barry. The piece of paper was lifted by the wind, high, up to the ceiling, towards the open window. The 4 of them, Barry and the secretary entity, and the head, jumped up, trying to catch it, but because they were, after all, just children, they were too small. Plus, the list was so crumpled now, it had formed lots of little folds and crinkles, which acted as tiny wings, and so it continued to float above the jumping children, and then another gust caught it, and it flew beyond their grasping hands and out of the window. Oh, said the head. I'm very sorry, Barry. I really am. Shall we send PCs 890 and 891 out to look for it? Barry sighed and sat down again. No, it's okay. I guess it doesn't matter anymore. The head and the secretary entity sat down too, looking rather uncertain as to what to say next. Instinctively, they all looked to the 24-hour glass. Now, there were about 70 grains left. Then 69. So, said the head, what were we talking about? Barry's parental choice, sir, said Secretary 1. Of course, said the head. So, Barry, which couple do you like best? Barry stared at him. He shook his head. Clearly, he was never going to find out exactly what happened to children who didn't find parents they liked by the time they were 10. But it was obviously something not very nice. So he said, well, there is a couple. Splendid. The Rada Wellorfs, Vlasarina, the Fwams, Elliot and Mama Cool, Malcolm and, well... Barry leant over the head's desk. The head leant over towards him. Not exactly. I was wondering about this other couple, this man and woman. I keep on seeing them wherever I go. Not the whole time, just in moments. The head leant back. Well, do you know who they are? Barry frowned. When I first saw them, their faces looked blurry. But each time I've seen them again, they've got slightly clearer. The head glanced at the secretary entity, who shrugged. Are they on our books? He said. Yes, said Barry. I think so. I mean, I thought I saw them when you first showed me some parent profiles, but it was so quick I'm not sure now. Well, let's have a look. The head flipped up the top of his gold laptop and expertly brought up a series of parent files. He scrolled through them quickly. There were a few faces Barry recognised, but that was because they belonged to the parents he'd been trying out. Lord Rada Welloff's photo had him standing on a rug that was also a dead bear. Vlasarina was in black and white, and neither of them was looking at the camera. But there was no sign of the parents he was looking for. No, said Barry. They're not here. Said the head. Well, can you describe them? Barry thought. They look kind. Although some of the time they look frightened. And something else, I don't know what it is. Their faces. They look at me with something I can't quite name. The head seemed to get a bit distracted during the speech from Barry. He drummed his fingers on the desk and looked anxiously at the 24-hour glass. It was hard to tell, but if you were someone with a magic gift for knowing, just by looking, how many things were in one place, like, say, sweets in a jar at a fete, you'd have known that there were 54 grains left. Well, I'm afraid that very descriptive description won't be enough to pinpoint them among the millions of parents we have on file, I'm afraid. And time marches on. As we know, it's nearly... He tapped the 24-hour glass, which unfortunately had the effect of making the sand grains run down even quicker. Your actual birthday. This took Barry aback. He'd had so many different and weird parties this week, he'd forgotten. His actual birthday. His real birthday. Yes. Look, Barry, I like you. I feel you've become my personal responsibility. I'm not having you end up... You know. Barry didn't know. But he wasn't going to start that again. There wasn't time, and besides, he did know that when the head said, you know, the secretary entity shut their eyes and gulped, which couldn't be good. So, if you can't decide, I'm afraid that means only one thing. What? Said Barry, a bad feeling creeping up the back of his neck. The head looked him straight in the eye. Code black, he said, and then pressed a button on the machine in the centre of his desk. Chapter 2. Barry heard a mechanical swishing noise and looked to his right. The wall of the head's office was sliding slowly away to reveal behind it Lord and Lady Rada Welloff, Vlasarina, the Fwams, Elliot and Mamacool, and Malcolm and Marjorie Bustle. Barrington! Barricina! Barry! Like Barry! Barry! Oh no, said Barry. They all came at him at once. The Fwams obviously got there first. Fwam! Fwam! Grabbing his right arm. The Rada Welloffs got to him next. Lady Rada Welloff's hat, with its model of Bottomley Hall, falling off in her hurry to get to his left arm. Vlasarina was next, Vlad doing a Dirk large stunt leap to fasten a hand onto his right leg. It took Malcolm and Marjorie Bustle a little longer to reach his left leg, possibly because they were avoiding the accusing stares of the secretary entity. Last up were Elliot and Mamacool, who shambled up uncertainly and, realizing that Barry had no limbs left to grasp, put their hands on his head and shut their eyes and said for some reason, Om. What are you doing here? Said Barry, stopping their Om before it had really got started. I thought you didn't want me anyway. We've, changed our minds, said Elliot Cool. I haven't, said Mamacool. Shh, said Elliot. Right, well, what about you? Barry said to Vlasarina, who were looking up at him from the ground. I thought you found a little girl to be your child, Patarina. We put her on the United Kingdom's Got Kids, who do the funniest things, and she won, said Vlad, singing a funny version of My Dog's Surprised by his own farts, and now she's left us to pursue her career in Bosnia-Herzegovina, said Morrisina. Oh, said Barry. Never mind them, said Lord Rada Welloff. Come back to Bottomley Hall. We won't make you shoot any more birds. Unless you want to, said Lady Radawelloff. No, said Derek Flam. Come and be with us. We won't make you train too hard, said Emily, although she was running on the spot as she said it, and Derek was doing a series of head fertles. It's us you want to be with, said Malcolm Bustle. You'll be our favourite child. He didn't like that, Malcolm. It made him feel bad, said Marjorie. Oh, yes, you won't be our favourite child. No, that doesn't work either, you idiot. Barry looked over at the head. He felt, with all the parents holding on to him, like he was at the centre of some weird gymnastic display. The head just shrugged his shoulders, pointed at the red 24-hour glass, which must have had only about 10 grains left in it, and said, Got to decide, Barry. At which point, all the parents just started pulling at him. His legs, his arms, his neck. Every bit of his body was being pulled in different directions. Ow! Screamed Barry. You're hurting me! But none of the parents seemed to hear him, because they were all shouting his name. Please, he screamed. My arms! My legs! You're pulling them off! But they just carried on pulling and shouting. It really hurt. Barry felt as if he was going to faint. He whirled round, trying to get free, and bang! His body hit something, and then he fell and cracked his head. Everyone turned. The room was showered in rainbow-coloured glass. The 24-hour glasses, he thought dimly. I must have knocked them over. The thought was never quite finished. A bit like how he imagined his grandpa's thoughts were these days. Instead, he could feel himself start to lose consciousness. But just before he did so, just before his senses disappeared entirely, he had a moment of pure fear. A sense that, if he couldn't find parents that he liked, there was perhaps some deep black void, some horrible emptiness waiting for him in this world. He felt he needed to stay awake and choose, somehow, someone, anyone, 2 people or one person to be his parents, to look after him, or otherwise. But now it was his turn, like the head, to trail off into the void. That's where we're going to leave it for today. The last bit of the book tomorrow. See you then.